So it seems there's been some pretty sizable leaks for the new Space Wolf Codex. Games Workshop appears to be sending the flyers to Legends, with the Stormwolf and Stormfang removed from the Codex. Thunderwolf Cavalry, Wolfen and some others survive, but there's a whole bunch more character datasheets lost, and a few tantalising teasers of interesting stat lines or a few special rules. Let's talk about the league and what we've got. Hello and welcome back to Auspex Tactics, where today we're talking Space Wolves, and in this video I thought we'd take a look over a few highlights of the new leaked Codex datasheets that have been circulating around on the internet. This week really does seem to have been a pretty relentless series of leaks for Games Workshop. First up, we had that Dawn of War Space Marine box, then the Saturnine Horus Heresy box, then the Thousand Suns getting shared early, and then their full codex after that, and a few other small things such as that Space Wolves transfer sheet that I talked about in one of the previous videos. Now as yet another thing, we've got super blurry pictures of the Space Wolves codex circulating the internet, visible enough that you can see the units that are there and the ones that are gone, but not visible enough that you can really make out unit profiles or anything like that. It's also a German language version as well, which certainly makes it even harder for me to identify any special rules and things, which sometimes you can sort of make educated guesses to, even if you can't see every word properly. Probably the biggest reveals are the datasheets that are staying and the ones that are going. This does appear to be the entire datasheet list, given that Games Workshop said there were 20 datasheets in the Codex, I believe, and it does look like there's 20 units here. So for this one I thought we could do a roundup of the units that are in the Codex, the ones that are going away, the confirmation that there's a bunch of models that are staying that don't seem to have updates yet, and a few interesting profile changes and rules tweaks from the datasheets themselves, though in general hard to say things too clearly, aside from the actual big stat blocks which are printed far larger than other things. Here's the unit list for the Space Wolf Codex. For the squads, as mentioned, it looks like the Thunderwolf Cavalry are indeed staying. I think they were a unit that people were kind of rightly worried about, being a firstborn squad, that it didn't seem that Games Workshop had updated this time around. As with the Blood Angels and Space Marines in general, a lot of things that haven't had the Primaris treatment have been sent to Legends, and plenty of Space Wolf players would have been pretty concerned about that, given that there's been a really big emphasis on them in 10th edition, so lots of people have gone out and picked up lots of Thunderwolves, some competitive lists spamming them to the absolute max. Well, it's good news that the Thunderwolves themselves haven't gone away. Unfortunately, it does seem that they've lost all character support options, so I'm sure there's going to be a whole bunch of people with lots of miniatures that are basically either Legends profiles or proxying for individual Thunderwolves now. I'm certain that that'll annoy a lot of people. Otherwise for the squads, we've got the new ones that they'd revealed the kits for: Grey Hunters and Bloodclaws, Wolfguard Head Takers and Wolfguard Terminators. Fenrisian Wolves seem to have survived, and then it looks like they've split the datasheet for Wolfen into the regular squad and a datasheet with Hammers. That lines up with a sprue packaging leak for them that we'd seen recently. Then for the vehicles and vehicle characters, as mentioned the planes are gone, but all the Dreadnoughts have survived. Again, definitely another one that were at risk. Bjorn, Murderfang, the Wolfen Dreadnought and the Venerable Dreadnought. Again, I think people were right to be concerned about that, given that Games Workshop removed the Blood Angels Librarian Dreadnought, but fortunately they're staying for now. I wonder if it might imply that they might get an updated miniature at some stage. Then for characters, for the named ones, we've got Logan Grimnar, Jarl Stormcaller, Ragnar Blackmane and Ardak Rockfist. They're the Primaris named characters, though interesting that Ulrich the Slayer also managed to survive the Purge as well. And then for generic characters, the list is cut down by a massive amount here. We've just got the Wolfguard Battle Leader in power armor, him and the Wolf Priest miniature that we're getting in the big launch box set, and then the Iron Priest miniature, which is quite a cool model and a fairly recent one as the firstborn ones go. It is nice to have some of the most important units survive. I think Thunderwolf Cavalry and the Dreadnoughts would have really annoyed people if they'd been taken away, though at the same time they have taken some pretty heavy losses to a whole bunch of other things. First up, looks like the Stormwolf and Stormfang gunship has gone, the sort of Wolf's Head longship style thing that is the faction's unique flyer, and really quite a big chunky kit that's pretty high investment if you want to pick one up. Looks like unfortunately this one will be going the way of Legends, and that's pretty bad news if you had got one or more of these. They're big expensive things, I'm sure take a lot of hobby effort to make look nice. I feel like a lot of the other Space Marine flyers and things, not really ones that probably needed a Primaris replacement, and I wouldn't expect them to replace them with a Primaris version at any time soon. Games Workshop really seem to be de-emphasising aircraft in 40k. It does seem that that model kit has been moved to sold out online outside of North America now, and that's what happens when Games Workshop takes it away and implies that it's not coming back. Maybe one of the other biggest surprises were the Hounds of Morkai being taken away. This choice surprises me a bit. I feel like they weren't a unit that anyone particularly wanted when they came out, basically just generic Reavers with a Space Wolf upgrade sprue thrown on them, and then with a different colour scheme, lore and rules. And honestly I just assumed that they'd stay with rules for them, given that the Reavers would be staying around, and all you need is some token Space Wolf upgrades and a different paint job, and you've still got the unit available. Games Workshop does sell a kit that's tailored for them with the upgrade sprue in it, so I guess that implies that's going away. I must admit that one must have not really sold much at all, given that for some reason they decided to package it with just 5 Reaver bodies rather than 10, and the full squad of 10 Reavers was around about the same sort of price as them, just without the upgrade sprue, so it made far more sense to buy the big box and then find some Space Marine shoulder pads elsewhere. In any case, really surprised that they got removed. It just seems so low effort to keep them in, and I guess if you've got Hounds of Morkai, then run them as Reavers now. Otherwise, there's a bunch of the unique Space Wolf units that had individual datasheets that looked like they weren't anymore. The Wolf Scouts, Skyclaws and Longfangs are all out of the book, though generally these ones didn't tend to have enormous variance versus the core Space Marine versions, just having a few slightly different historic squad quirks with different war gear. I guess the idea would be to represent those with the generic Space Marine versions now. And then kind of as expected, the Space Wolf character roster is cut down considerably. All the Thunderwolf characters are gone. Canis Wolfborn, Harold Deathwolf, the Lord and the Battle Leader. That's going to really change how Thunderwolf cavalry work, seeing as you wouldn't be able to get enhancements in the unit anymore. Kind of a shame they didn't keep something like a Battle Leader option and just say build it out of the regular Thunderwolf box that people have been doing before. There's several other named characters that are going. Lucas the Trickster, who looks like he's got a sort of near equivalent counts as the Bloodclaw Sergeant, who looks a bit like him. Chrome Dragongaze, who is maybe a bit more of a minor character, not too surprised to see him dropped, and his model was also sold out online, so that was a clue. And also, as expected, Logan Grimnar on Storm Rider is nowhere to be seen. We already knew that his miniature was resculpted with the big base with the wolves. Otherwise, all the add-on Wolfguard pack leaders have been dropped. The Terminator Battle Leader is no longer a thing, nor is the Cyberwolf. Again, not really too surprised to see any of those go away, to be honest, unfortunately. Overall, it definitely is some heavy hits to the Space Wolves roster. It feels like the Space Wolves Flyer being removed is maybe one of the biggest and most sad ones for people who had it, given it doesn't really have a good direct equivalent outside Legends. I guess maybe could try and run as a Storm Raven somehow. Before we move on, I'll just give a quick shout out to the sponsor of today's video in Greytide Studios Upgrades. One other way to add a whole bunch of flavour to some more generic power armoured models out there. They have various different ranges, but their Primal Hounds can certainly add a fair bit to the Space Viking kind of theme. Their STLs are available via My Mini Factory, though if you want some physical bits printed and delivered to you, Wargame Portal in the USA has them. After the UK and the rest of the world, they're available via Only Games, both links down in the video description. Basically, they have really quite a lot of small bits packs, or around about 5 bits or so you can tailor the exact parts that you want. Here's some examples of their stuff for a bit of flavour. Some nice Asgardian helms there, and some bare-headed Space Vikings with some nice facial hair going on. Some fun backpacks with some runes, battle horns, and some axes and stuff slung over them. A big core set of these available via Only Games that has a whole bunch of bits all lumbered together for at least what I consider a fairly reasonable price. Some smaller, more dedicated things such as shields or two-handed weapons. I feel like shields are quite a fun way to add some theme to an army with some cool designs here. I've got some capes and jetpacks to jazz up a few of your more standard models. And maybe one of the things that I found most impressive is this ancient armour here, adding a whole bunch of theme to some big stompy walkers. In any case, check them out, links down in the video description if you'd like to take a look over their range. Getting back to the Space Wolves though, aside from added and removed units, basically it gives us a few confirmations as to things that aren't getting new models, and maybe implications that some might next edition or something. Plus of course there's a few small bits that we can make out from the blurry datasheets. I guess this is final confirmation that Lehman Russ himself isn't in the Codex. They aren't going to drop some surprise massive Primarch reveal on us. I still wouldn't be too surprised though if he does wind up turning up for an end edition campaign like the Lion did for 9th edition. People are largely expecting him to come back as the next Primarch, and within 12 months of a great big Space Wolf release coming out might not be the worst time if Games Workshop fancies it. Otherwise, looks like Beyond the Fell-Handed, the Wolfen and the Thunderwolves all aren't getting resculpts despite staying in the book. They all feel like units that have got a pretty good odds of having them at some stage though. Perhaps the Wolfen a little bit less so than the others if I had to guess. I do kind of wonder who might get a sort of split edition release, like it seems that they're planning to do with the Dark Angels, given they did the Deathwing this edition, and then presumably Ravenwing next time around. And I'm wondering if Blood Angels might get some actual Death Company next edition. But that's definitely a wish list at this point. I feel like the fact that Bjorn and Ulrich in particular stayed in the Codex probably implies that they will eventually get Primaris updates if I had to guess. Bjorn and the Dreadnoughts weren't removed like the Blood Angels Librarian one was, and Ulrich the Slayer wasn't removed with the rest of the special characters, and Bjorn in particular is one of the big name characters in the Codex, so maybe he has a bit more chance than some. I'll not be quite as hopeful about the Iron Priest. I feel like maybe he's sticking around as he was quite a nice and fairly recent Firstborn sculpt. Maybe that's why he's survived. Getting into the actual datasheet details though, and as mentioned the vast majority of the slides seem to be far too blurry to be able to make out their details either of stats or of special rules. A few people seem to have been having a go though with AI things and translation tools. What you can make out are the unit profiles for most of them, and then for some of them just a few extra details. As we know, Space Wolves are going to be moving 7 inches for their standard power armoured units. We saw a few of those previewed on datasheets that Games Workshop gave us previously. It looks like for other things, they also get boosted movement stats. Terminators go up to 6 inches, Wolfen to 9 inches from 8, and Thunderwolves go a bit faster, going 12 inches up from 10. Looks like the stat block for the battle leader is 5 wounds, and it seems that he gets a 4+ invulnerable save even without a storm shield. If so, I guess that shield would add an extra wound. And then the Wolf Priest, again we saw a partial datasheet for him from Games Workshop. Looks like he's basically a move 7 inches style chaplain. They said his bonus rule would be to heal his squad in some way, but you can't really make out much more of the details here. For the Wolfguard Headtakers, they're the power armoured elites of the army. They move 7 inches with 3 wounds and OC1. So kind of as expected there, basically Blade Guard, but the Space Wolves equivalent. We know that you can either field them with axe and shield or sword and axe, it seems. And interestingly enough, it does look like they've got their wolves that they're packaged with listed on their datasheet. Games Workshop said that you'd be able to field them as separate units, and it does still seem that Fenrisian wolves are present in the Codex. But I do wonder if they might have some sort of special rule where the wolves can split off from the head takers and go their separate way. As previewed, it does seem that their pre-game rule to select one unit for their quarry is a thing, with devastating wounds and precision against that target, and when they kill it, they get to attack a new one. Wolfen having 2 datasheets was interesting enough. I guess that means they have different points costs for the hammer unit versus the regular one, and they will have different datasheet rules as well. It's too blurry to tell what they are from these ones as best I can do. Their stat block has had a few changes, seems to move 9 inches and a toughness 6 up from toughness 5. They're still OC 0 and have slightly worse leadership at leadership 7 now. It does seem that these datasheets fit in well with an instruction set that was sent out with Wolfen recently. That one fits in with the leak's datasheets. And while it doesn't list their special rules or anything like that, it does list their damage output. It looks like the standard Wolfen with their power weapons aren't a slightly weedy damage 1 anymore. They're 3 attacks at strength 5, AP 2 and damage 2 with sustained hits. Not really so very different from, say, a Blade Guard veteran style damage output, I guess. And then the hammer ones look like they only get 2 attacks per model, but they hit at strength 5, AP 2 and damage 3. So fairly good against sort of medium to elite infantry, but they also have anti-monster and anti-vehicle 3+, so they'd be wounding land raiders and gladiator tanks as if they were, say, strength 14 or something. Feels like both of those are interesting enough profiles if they're costed right for them. We don't know their special rules either, but maybe not too bad to gain a bit of damage and AP. Logan Grimnar was one of the datasheets that had more visible stats compared with most people. Seems that he moves 6 inches in his Terminator armour, is toughness 5 with a 2+ save and a 4+ invulnerable as you expect, a big 8 wounds, leadership 6 and OC 1. It does seem that it is only able to join Wolfguard Terminators, so he can't join the other flavours of Terminators that you get in Codex Space Marines. I've seen a couple of people interpret his rules. It looks like he's got some sort of reserves manipulation around Terminator Deep Strike, and then I think that's an increased cost of command point aura for his enemies nearby, a little bit hard to tell. His melee doesn't seem to be enormously different, a whole bunch of strength 8 and damage 3 attacks with a sweep mode, and the wolves now add an extra 6, strength 5, AP 1 and damage 1 attacks, again as best I can make out through the blurriness. Seems he can still deep strike with the wolves in tow as well, so he'll not stop his Terminator unit from being able to do that. Otherwise, Beyond the Fell-Handed seems to have boosted movement like the rest of the Dreadnoughts as well, and looks like he's going 9 inches. He appears to have kept his Feel No Pain, gained a 5+ invulnerable save. Then according to one person translating the leaks, they were saying he generates 1 CP per battle round and has a -1 to wound special rule for higher strength versus his toughness. I feel like the wound thing would be worse than his current halving damage though. That's really quite a powerful debuff. Bear in mind that we've already had some datasheets basically previewed by Games Workshop already. They showed us the Grey Hunter one here. These guys have got fairly standard Space Marine stat lines, but boosted all the way up to OC3 for some reason. They get the Assault Intercessor special rule, where they get to reroll wound rolls of 1 against everything, and all wound rolls against objectives. They don't appear to have any special weapons in the unit, and as they mentioned, they've got rapid fire bolters, so I believe that's 3 shots within 12 inches and 2 out to 24. Looks like they'd be a pretty solid objective skirmisher, and you definitely have to wipe out the vast majority of them before you can take points from them. It appears that they might only be locked to squads of 10 like Tactical Marines though, which might not be the best news for them for the objective skirmishing game. For the Bloodclaws, they get some mass attacks with their chainswords, again boosted movement to 7, and it appears for their squad numbers they can be taken either in a squad of 10 or a squad of 20, so sort of a bit like a Primaris Crusader squad now. They can't take a Power Fist and don't really get that many special weapons either, just a Plasma Pistol there, and then it seems that their special rule is an Advance and Charge one. I kind of hope that both of these would have at least reasonably cheap points cost. It's going to be a big commitment to take a big 10 of them, and they're not really going to have massive threat against things that have got either high armor saves or high toughness values. I guess characters would be needed to help those out. In any case, let me know what you think down in the comments below. What do you make of the rules teasers and snippets that we've got? Thunderwolf Cavalry, Dreadnoughts, and Planes and all that? I look forward to hearing your takes, and please let me know any other bits or translations that you've managed to make out of the datasheet. I'll certainly be interested to hear any more and maybe round them up in a future video. I kind of wonder when we'll be getting the big box announced for this. It could be as soon as this evening's preview for all I know. Hopefully it won't be too long before we get the full details. As mentioned, feel free to check out the Greytide Studio bits linked from Wargame Portal and Only Games down in the video description depending on where you might be in the world. A big thank you to the sponsorship from them. Feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics if you'd like to see more like this. I'll certainly seek to round up any news and rules changes from Games Workshop here on the channel, and I'll be looking forward to doing some Space Wolf unit reviews and round up the Codex itself once we get details. Check out the channel's affiliate discount links or the Patreon page linked down in the video description if you'd like to help support. A massive thank you to anyone choosing to do so there, but otherwise a huge thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.